across the country regarding this. My own personal feeling is, I don't even want you to have to get to a legal point, because I know by the time it reaches that level, intentional infliction of emotional distress, somebody's been damaged. And what we know is prolonged exposure to this stuff, that damage is very difficult to ameliorate. So we see things like post-traumatic symptoms very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. It's pretty bad.
But wouldn't this follow under like employment regulations?
Yeah.
So, but those are laws.
But they're not like healthy. We're looking at healthy workplace bills, not like sexual harassment. When you think about the legal protections around sexual harassment, racial discrimination, and other protected classes, it's not.
But that's like civil.
It potentially
right,
is.
Things.
Now there's increasing
this is
numbers
like
of court
employment
cases.
law.
Yeah.
So it is.
But it's still, they don't, in employment law, they have to go under different regulations. So if it happens to be a woman that's a target and the man is the actor, then they'll try to go through sexual harassment. But I read one case where it was a deposition where the company acknowledged that the supervisor was a bully. Absolutely and completely. They understood that. But he bullied everybody.
Equally.
So it wasn't a sexual discrimination case, which is what the attorneys brought it under. So there's ways you have to try to wiggle it around to make it fit. But I've got more information for you about some of the efforts.
I have a few questions about this slide. Whenever I
Sure.
see numbers being used to make claims, I want to make sure I understand.
That's fine.
So, for example, the last part of it where it says 57.5% identified more than one actor.
Right.
Does that could that mean several different people were involved in separate bullying incidents, or does it have to mean the bullying was done by a group against an individual?
Yeah. I'm aware of that, because when I write about it, I write about those distinctions. And I've critiqued constructively other people's research because they're not making those distinctions about whether those different behaviors are coming from different actors and different incidents. Because of the way we assess bullying in the study, which is we gave people the definition and said, is this happening to you? Yes. Thinking about the relationship, the most significant or memorable one. So we're stacking the deck a little bit on the memorable. Thinking about that one, who was involved? So we are focusing on a set of incidents and particular relationships. So we are sorting that out.
Also, I would think in the first one, the 55% senior to target.
Right.
I would think people would be more sensitive to the treatment by people senior to them because the people senior to them might have greater influence over their
and there may not be intention to harm.
Or,
yeah. And there may not be intention to harm. I mean, there's the limitation of doing a survey. So we would want to work, and we have been, doing interviews with people about those kinds of experiences because the issue about intent comes into play. And how the behavior that I manifest as the chair and the behavior, Jim and I could manifest the same behaviors. Jim Cherney is one of my colleagues, a junior colleague. And Jim and I could manifest the same behavior, but it'll be experienced differently because of the positions that we occupy within the institution. Yeah.
Doesn't that get into hostile work environment if the supervisor is bullying you or harassing you or harassing several people?
Right.
Isn't that a hostile?
Yeah, it's one of the ways we assess hostile work environments is whether it spreads. The other thing, Dan, speaking to that, building on Ron's point and coming back to you on that, we may have multiple actors engaging in different behaviors, so it's not the same incident, but we start to look at that as why are all these people doing all of these things? What the heck is going on in that unit? That's how the VA raised the issue, because they started to see things in their units, not actual behaviors, but possible indicators there was something going on. Increased sick leave, increased turnover, lateral transfers, that kind of stuff.
But I'm thinking there's a difference, for example, between a person bullying another person and, let's say, a committee that has maybe a personnel committee or something consistently mishandling or poorly handling an individual.
Absolutely. And trying to sort that out in research requires more qualitative things. We go a case study, essentially. When I do expert witness stuff, those are the things I have to try to sort out in my questioning of people. What are we seeing here? Are we seeing a situation where somebody is being mistreated? Are we seeing a situation where we have an employee who is particularly difficult and the organization is struggling on how to manage that? Are we seeing an escalated conflict? You know, where both people are given as good as they get and now it's getting a little bit out of hand? What are we seeing here? But you're right. In these numbers, you have to sort it out. Go ahead.
My last point was about the very high percentages at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether people have a sufficiently focused definition of bullying. I mean, for example,
Absolutely.
suppose you have a faculty member who is very assertive. Let's say he likes to teach certain courses all the time and comes to the committee where that's decided.
Right.
And always says, I want this, I want that,
Right.
seemingly stepping on everybody else who might want those courses,
Right.
but not really singling out any other individual. Nevertheless, I could imagine that maybe all the other people sitting there would say, oh, this guy's a bully because he doesn't care about anybody else. He's doing his own thing. And I'm wondering whether that should count as bullying.
I have two responses to that one, because these are things that we try to figure out as well. One of them is that we're trying to sort out. I just lost my train of thought. Don't you hate that? And I'm on tape, no less. Okay. One of the things we saw in the universities that we worked with was we actually collected data. We shared that back with employees, which is really critical because employees get really tired of being asked to fill out surveys and then never hearing a thing. So our commitment was we went back, and then we opened ourselves up to talking with people and having them come and either talk about their own experiences, their reactions to the data, whatever. And one of the things that Joel and I got really clear about was that sometimes the folks who were coming to talk to us about a situation that they called bullying, we would not. We would not. So there's a couple of interesting things for me about that. One is, you know, how our definition as researchers fits with people's experience, and there's been different kinds of information about it. But the other part is, what is going on in this organization where people have a need, a grievance, broadly speaking, that they need to bring forward, they want to talk about, but they don't have the words to talk about. They don't have the sanctioned language within the organization to do it. And so then they start shoving it under other things. We see that with conflicts in organizations. EEO offices will often get all sorts of conflicts brought to them, many of which do not fall into their purview, because it doesn't have to do with protected class. But a big part is because people are going, I don't know where to take this. I don't know where to get help about it. All I know is that something is wrong, this feels bad, it's affecting my work, I don't like this person, whatever it is.
Like, what would be an example
Of,
the latter, the last thing that you mentioned?
you mean taking it to EEO?
No, of that kind of conflict where people might take it to an EEO, but it doesn't have any purview.
I mean, it could be because we have a situation between, well, if it's between two same-sex actors, that's for EEO is a bit of a challenge to take. Or when they do their investigation, there's not, or even if it's opposite-sex actors or different racial or ethnic actors, they look at it and they make the assessment and they go, this is not tied to identity. This is about something else. And the EEO folks we talk to do try to work with that, but they also have constraints on them in terms of what they're permitted to do. I wanted to point out the mobbing piece of it. There's a man named Ken Westhughes. Ken is a colleague of mine at the University of Waterloo, and he's written extensively on what he refers to as academic mobbing, which is about colleagues getting together in a department and going after someone. It's very interesting. And he and I had some really fascinating conversations about that. Got it?
Well, when we're talking about the high number on top, well, I wouldn't think a supervisor or a chair would bully a faculty because I think SME is more flexible on the work, you do your work, so a supervisor is not somebody who's bullying.
I'm going to have you hold on to that because you're moving into the culture of academia and why it might be supportive and you can hide things. And that's exactly the issue of the time when it comes to the problem. I'll take one more question, then I want to make
A
sure.
minute ago you said they don't have the language, but sometimes it's also the worm or also lack of any resolution.
Absolutely. So we really take that as, it has me ask the question I indicated before, which is, what's going on in this organization? What are the languages available? What are the processes available for people to manage the challenges and difficulties they might have with each other? And that